talking electric vehicles. EVs have a huge part to play in the world getting to net zero. The problem is, the IEA says EVs require 6 times more minerals than conventional cars. So how do you balance environmental goals and transportation goals? Let's get perspective. Thuy, good to have you with us. For those of you not in the loop, you should be. Vinfast, of course, has been in the EV space for about 3 years now. It's come a long way since it first started, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Give us a sense of how Vinfast looks at sustainability as it develops EVs.
Well, we started we actually started five years ago, over 5 years ago.
I stand corrected?
No, but in EV only 3 years. We started wanting to make EVs, but there was no way to learn how to make EVs, so we started with internal combustion engine vehicles to learn how to make vehicles, and then we moved on to EVs 3 years ago. Early last year, we announced that we would stop making internal combustion engine vehicles, and we stopped in the summer last year. So now we only we design and manufacture only EVs. So since the beginning, we've always had this ESG at the company. We committed to COP26 zero emission goals. We signed the Amazon climate pledge and all that to reach to the zero emission in the future. I think you're right that this it takes more mineral to make batteries for the EVs. However, we all know that internal combustion engine vehicles is not the way to go anymore. So we need to move forward. And in the future, at least in the medium term, all we have is EVs. We start out with no tailpipe emission, so that's a good start compared to internal combustion engine vehicles. We need to improve and optimize on the in the back end with the battery, so that we consume less critical minerals. But I think there's a lot with the technological breakthroughs. There are a lot coming as well with the battery recycling, with better battery R&D technology. So I think there's a lot coming.
So what kind of improvement are we looking at with the new technology? I mean, right now I think it's good enough if we're going 100, 300 kilometers. Are we looking at 500, 800 kilometers? And when might that be?
Definitely. I think the vehicles today can go comfortably at 300, 500 kilometers. I think 800 to 1,000 kilometer range is in very near future, in the next 2-3 years. I mean, depending on the cost, but it's possible.
It is about cost, it is about size, it is about a lot of different things. What are key considerations? Where are we in those discussions?
I think with the battery technology, as the battery technology advances, we improve the energy density, improve the performance of the battery, shorter charging, and just longer range for the car as well. And then we also, there has been a lot of improvement on the charging stations, charging technology for the vehicles as well.
There's a lot of talk about how we should be targeting towards a circular economy, means batteries need to be recycled. We're such at a nascent stage. What needs to be done? What kind of backing needs to be given by governments, for instance, even in terms of incentives?
Yeah, I think circular economy is very similar to sustainable supply chain to some extent. You need participation from all the participants in circular economy. I think in battery recycling, I mean the way we look at the EVs is our battery. We will use the battery for the second life of the vehicle. So we have VNES, part of Vingroup, that focuses on battery storage system, using battery for other purposes like energy storage, for example. And then we look beyond that to the battery recycling. So we have been partnering with other partners in battery recycling. One of our partners, I think Recycle, is they claim that they can recycle up to 95% of the critical minerals and can release less mineral into the environment, so which is very encouraging. So battery recycling is still in the very nascent stage of development, but I think there's a lot of a promising future.
Promising, are we looking at what time frame where perhaps we'll get to where we want to be?
3 to 5 years, something. But I think it's some of it now. Like we already have some pilot recycling factory in Vietnam. We're building some in Vietnam already, and we plan to take that model to other countries as well. So it's the technology is here, but the adoption of technology takes some time as well. And also, in terms of battery technology, we have been working with a lot of partners to reduce the reliance on critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, nickel. We, like using, for example, sodium, which is readily available. So that would be cheaper and less having less negative impacts on the environment. So there's a lot going on in the battery industry.
There's a great push for the adoption of EVs right now, but of course for a lot of consumers and buyers it is still about cost. And right now in countries like Singapore, where I come from, EVs are really expensive. How do you bring the cost down to make it a viable option for consumers?
I just had the conversation with some people yesterday about the cost of cars and EVs, cars in general and EVs in Singapore, and I think there's more to that cost than just EVs being costly. However,
point noted.
However, I think the government and policy play a very important role in adoption of EVs. You look at some North European countries like Norway, like Sweden. The policy actually play an important role in converting most of the vehicles on the road into EVs. You see that in the US as well with the policy. I think in Vietnam in particular, there's a new policy where that reduced the you call it special consumption tax in Vietnam for EV from 15% down to 3%. 3% versus 40% special consumption tax that you have to pay for a normal car. Give us advantage in pricing our vehicles to be at break even or making a profit so that we can sustain the business, for example. So that I think policies are very important. And it's also important for us to continue optimizing costs, bringing down the production, the BOM cost, applying more technology to bring the cost down, to make the vehicles more accessible to the mass market, not just to a few people.
I want to touch on the ecosystem because I know that Southeast Asia is trying to build an EV ecosystem. It's not just about Vietnam, which is producing cars. We have Thailand. We have Indonesia, which has the minerals for EVs, and of course Singapore pushing through the adoption of EVs within the country. How do you see this playing out?
I've been saying since end of last year that ASEAN is a great place to have an ecosystem for EVs, and Vinfast is making a conscious effort in pushing for that in ASEAN. So I had a meeting with all the ASEAN ambassadors in Vietnam last week on the sides of the ASEAN summit, and we had a few conversations about it. Each of the players within ASEAN can have their roles in building this ecosystem for EV. Indonesia with the minerals, with battery investment in the battery industry, for example. We as an ASEAN only EV player, for example, with Malaysia, like you mentioned before, semiconductor business. Singapore leading ASEAN in terms of adopting EVs, not only like electric vehicles, but e-bus and other form of green energy for mobility as well. So I think together we can push forward to make ASEAN as to build ecosystem for EV in ASEAN. So I'm making a few trips. I'm making a trip to Malaysia in a few days, in 10 days or so, to further the conversation. The trip to Indonesia is also in Philippines, also part of the plan for this year. I mean, it takes time and it takes collaboration, not only with government to government, but also private sector need to play a role. But I have strong belief that ASEAN can be a good place to build an ecosystem.
But what are the challenges? I mean, this is a country of 10 nations, all at various stages of development.
11 now.
Yeah, and different expertise. I mean, what are the challenges facing the companies in trying to build this ecosystem?
I think the first challenge for EV adoption is obviously charging networks, right? If you cannot charge the vehicle, everybody have this range anxiety about EVs, even though you can actually, technically, you can plug in your car anywhere, like, plugging in your phone to charge. But obviously, everybody is very concerned about having the range anxiety, and charging normally takes a long time. So you need, like, fast charging stations to kind of ease off that concern. So I think charging network is important. In Vietnam, we built the charging network ourselves. So on the highway on the main highway, Vietnam is very long. So on the main highway from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City, you can ride using our cars because we have charging station everywhere. Within about 50 kilometers radius, there will always be a charging station, a Vinfast charging stations. In the city, we have a lot more charging stations. So that makes EV adoption a little bit easier. However, I mean, the capacity of charging station will also need to increase, because recently we launched a green taxi in Vietnam, and then we started and the green taxi started taking up places in charging stations, so now we have to build more as well. But it's very important. And then obviously, having vehicles of different types to meet different budget for the customers. That's why we have a whole lineup of 6 different kinds of vehicles from A segment to E segment, because it's not one fit all, right? Different families, different consumers have different needs, so we need to have vehicle available for customers, and that costs money as well. And above all, I think the government policy to promote EVs, as well as all the market participants to push for EV adoption.
Truth be told, it's a tough space to be in, and I think the media has been quite critical of Vinfast. In fact, Bloomberg itself ran a story today about how Vinfast has recalled some of its cars in the US. What are some of the difficulties that you're facing?
First of all, I think we issued recall for 999 cars in the US. I think early last week. It's actually pretty normal in the industry to make recalls. This time we recall.
Elon Musk has done it.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think if you look at the statistic, right, each of the big OEM have done it 5 or 6 times this year. So this is our first time in the US. And the issue for this time is like the screen of the might go blank for a few seconds, for example. When I talked about it to somebody last week, to the CEO of the SPAC last week, he was just laughing it off. And he said his so-and-so EV have that issue all the time, and he's taking it to the and like very established name. He's like taking it to the service center next week, so it's okay. But I think it's not okay for us, because if it's not good, then we need to recall. But it's just a very quick procedure. Update the software either over the air or update the software at the service center, and it would be okay. But it's out of the precaution for the consumer. OEM should recall the cars if they feel that there might be a safety issue. We have not seen any issues with the vehicle so far, but out of precaution, we did.
Is there a sense how many cars have been recalled, just to get a sense of?
The recall impacted 208 cars in total.
You've rolled out in the US. I think it's your second rollout already. Some critics say that your cars are not quite ready for the American market. How do you respond to that?
I think about 2 weeks ago, there were a lot of, there's some negative news about the cars. I think, but to be fair, and this is after the media tour where we invited a lot of reporters to come and test drive our cars in the, just to, and to write whatever that they feel about the car. So there were about 6 articles that were not positive about the cars, but on top of that, we have like 20, 30 different articles that were either neutral or some of them very positive about the vehicles. So on the positive side, everybody agreed that the vehicles are stylish on the exterior, like look beautiful.
It doesn't hurt to look good.
Of course, as like spacious and good interior, loaded with technology. Some of the reporters couldn't understand all the technology that we put in the car, so part of the step is we have to take some of the features out, so that maybe they're too new for the market, for example. And so just in general, I think the tone is very positive and good. I think we are a new player, and of course, there are issues, and we welcome all the constructive comments so that we can improve. But I think we immediately reacted to it. We took all the article, put out, analyzed all the points that people said, and highlighted that there are 8 or 6 different points that we need to work on, and we have a timeline by Monday morning. So that happened on Saturday morning. By Monday morning, we have a list, here's what we need to do, and the timeline for improvement.
And the plans for your plant in North Carolina, in terms of production, what are you looking at in the next few years?
We are in the blackout period for filing for the spec, so we can't share a lot of things, but it's going to come out soon. We got the air permit, which is the most important permit to start the construction. We are still in the process of preparing the foundation for the plant, and we start the construction soon. So everything is going according to the plan.
Why a SPAC? Because initially the plan was to go through the general IPO. Why change the plan?
So as you recall, November last year, we filed the F1 to do the traditional IPO, and we've been updating the F1 with the SEC, getting the question and providing the answer. So we are ready to go to do an IPO via the traditional way.
But why a SPAC?
However, the market for the last 18 months, the capital markets has been very challenging. It's like almost impossible to get a IPO done, especially we new, and we're not known in the market yet. And I think especially for EV sector, it's been even more brutal than the normal market. So we decided, IPO is to raise capital and to be listed in the US, right? So for us, being listed in the US is important. So we just decouple the 2 goals. First of all, our shareholders, our Chairman Phạm Nhật Vượng and Vingroup, agreed to give us another $2.5 billion to continue with our plan until, for the next 18, 24 months. So that gives us the capital needed. And then we, via the de-SPAC process, we can get the company listed and wait for the capital markets to come back. Right. So we achieved both goals, but we just decouple the 2 goals.
If I've got my numbers right, you've invested about $9 billion already?
Roughly, yeah.
Yes. In terms of investments, future investments, what are you looking at as you scale, as you expand?
I think we have another $2.5 billion committed by the existing shareholders to take the company for the next 18 to 24 months. I think the market potential is huge for EV, right? We can't go back to internal combustion engine vehicles. There are not many players that have the full suite of EVs, like for all the market at affordable pricing like we do. So we feel like the future is very bright. It's all come down to having proper financing in order to take it forward. So let's see how it goes.
accelerating growth. Thuy, thank you so much for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you so much.